What is going on, FA Nation? John F. here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm MLB DFS Playbook live show. It is Wednesday. We got 8 games here on the DraftKings main slate. Grande. Little day baseball action earlier today. Some exciting pitching performances to watch. Free game of the day over on MLB was Skeens versus Mizorowski. Didn't necessarily go as I think many people planned. Both got yanked early. Skeens gave up 4 runs. Mizorowski was awesome.
Yeah,
but pulled after 74 pitches and 5
shots. Neither throwing 80 pitches was kind of a fat L for sure.
Yeah. But fun to see a guy just throw, was it 7 pitches in the first inning over 100 miles an hour?
Yeah,
effortlessly.
It's bizarre now that we've seen Mizorowski for 3 starts. It's bizarre that the odds.
He wasn't like the number 1 pitching prospect in baseball.
Well, did you see? No. Well, that's and his pitch is starting. The movement is crazy, but the odds, they had odds on who would throw the harder first pitch between him and Skeens. And Skeens was the runaway favorite, and Mizorowski beat him by like 3 miles an hour, dude.
Skeens throws 98, Mizorowski threw 103.
Yeah.
So we got that going on for us here. But now we got to focus on the main slate. Main slate's here. We're going to do our best not to mail in this show and build a competent lineup for all of you guys.
I've already mailed it in. Joke's on you, buddy.
I don't know. 8 games. What's the weather looking like here? We got a couple
Not great. Yeah. Seattle, Minnesota is probably the one that we have to worry about the most. That has some legit potential to be delayed, but in like start. So like late start, play full game. And then there's like basically like kind of rain in Colorado and kind of rain in St. Louis, kind of rain in Cincinnati and kind of rain in New York, but nothing overly concerning. The only thing is probably a delayed start in Seattle, Minnesota, but once that game starts, it's good to go.
Pitching. Zach Wheeler's $10,300. Logan Webb's $10K. Those are your top 2 guys. Max Fried gets Cincinnati at $9,500. Obviously, Joe Ryan in that rain game, and then Yamamoto's in Coors at $8,800. We on the preview show we acknowledge that Yamamoto is certainly a bit cheaper than he typically is priced. Obviously, with the Coors Field spot there. Logan Webb was our favorite pitcher on the slate. He is the highest rostered as well, slightly above Joe Ryan and Yamamoto here. Has anything changed for you throughout the day on where you want to go?
Has anything changed? No. I mean, I think Logan Webb is still the best pitcher on the slate. What I will say, and we've kind of talked about this a lot this year, and maybe we were so checked out on last night's show we weren't even really paying attention, so like it's something we might have missed, but sure. We've talked a lot about Houston this year and how bad they've been against righties, and that's really held true. Like in terms of ISO, their 133 ISO, John, is tied with Kansas City for 29th.
They're bad.
They have a 710 team OPS. That is bottom 10 in the league. Like it's not like a great offense. So, there's not much of an ownership discount, and there's not much of a price discount, price increase. So like if you look at something and be like, Zach Wheeler's my SP1 versus Logan Webb, I'd be like, sure. Because Houston has been great against one split and terrible against the other. And the split that they're terrible against happens to be against every year a top 3 Cy Young candidate for the last however many years. So I think Wheeler and Webb are really kind of a 1A, 1B situation to me. If you think Wheeler checks in at lower ownership and it's any significant, by the end of the show, because you give the live updates all the time. When you're paying attention and not like doing other stuff. you're always updating on like, oh wait, the play, like yesterday's movement was throughout the whole show, right?
Throughout the whole show, yeah.
If there's a significant gap, I think there's a legitimate reason why you'd go Wheeler over Webb.
When it comes to ownership today, Max Fried is not getting much of it. We saw, obviously, Rodon yesterday pitch really well. Probably should have pitched a little deeper into that game if you're a Yankees fan.
Yes.
You're getting an under 20% Max Fried today at $9,500.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like, would you say, is this true or false what I'm about to say?
Okay.
More consistently, Zach Wheeler and Logan Webb will strike out more guys than Max Fried.
Consistently strike guys
consistently.
I guess so. I would say maybe Webb and Fried more on par for their careers. Webb obviously has struck out a few more guys on average this year than usual, but not like Wheeler for sure. I would say
Wheeler for sure. I'm thinking like of what the ballpark and the heat, I guess, would be the main factor as to why, because the Reds are really not good against lefties.
And they have to make contact for any of that to really matter. So
and they have to make contact, and like they have not, and it's been an entire year thing. Like they're less than average in terms of power. They have a 23% strikeout rate against lefties. Their 650 OPS is worse than the Chicago White Sox on the year against lefties, and the Rays, who is a team that we've actively targeted against.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I think, in a tournament, in a large field tournament, there's a legitimate reason to go to Max Fried. Obviously, there's always like, can you double spend on a slate where there's cores? You can, and hope you get 60 points from Max Fried and Webb, or Max Fried and Wheeler, right? Like that's your hope. You get 60 plus from those two pitchers. I would say Fried is still third for me, but the ownership is largely intriguing because of how bad they've been against left-handed pitching this year.
Okay. And I agree with you, right? Getting him, at least for now, under 20%. There's your on a medium-sized slate. There's a little leverage for you there. We talked about Didier Fuentes. You mentioned him being the youngest player in the major leagues.
Yes.
$5,700. So the price tag, obviously, there are a handful of outfielders, not just hitters on the slate, but outfielders in general, priced higher than he is today. That price tag is driving up ownership. He's around 15%. What kind of confidence do you have in him against the New York Mets today?
I don't have much. He's a weird case because he's 20. I mean, he just turned 20, John. June 17th. 8 days ago, he was a teenager. I don't have a ton of confidence. He didn't really pitch well. He struck a bunch of guys out. He only made one start at AAA. That's kind of where they are in terms of like health in their pitching staff. Like they've needed able bodies, and Fuentes has that. He's had pretty good control at the minor league level. He's missed a bunch of bats, but like you are facing the offense in the New York Mets that are 5th in OPS and WOBA, 7th in WRC plus, 4th in ISO, and only strike out 20.6% of the time. I understand like the logic behind using a pitcher that is just cheap, right? Because it's just a GP. Like you're taking a risk, but a risk that if he gets you 12 to 15 fantasy points, you'll take it because that got you Shohei, or that got you insert whatever spend up you want to get to.
If he gets you 15 fantasy points, you're well above where you need him to be, right?
You're probably winning. You're like thinking about winning a tournament. You're like I have a chance at a takedown. I don't love it. because the Mets are really good. And I
There's
think
not a lot of value pitching on the slate, obviously, and that kind of is sort of where the crutch of it comes into. Like Colton Gordon is getting over around 13% right now. Do you want him versus Philly? That feels a little scary, just sort of given the Phillies lineup as a whole. Edward Cabrera, a guy that you highlighted a little bit, almost no win equity, going opposite of Logan Webb here. He's $6,700. He's getting over 10%. Nobody's in on Drew Rasmussen, who was somebody that you had a lot of interest in earlier today. Even Howard Bender did his underdog picks and took the under 2.5 earned runs allowed for Drew Rasmussen here this evening. You want to talk being contrarian, Rasmussen would be the play.
I think all three of the names you just previously mentioned, I have some interest in. Okay. Rasmussen, Cabrera, Gordon. We'll start Rasmussen because that's where you left off. That's a good pitcher at $7,500. I'm obviously not confident that we'll get up to 92 pitches again, but I do think there's something to be said about 87 and 92 in his last 2 outings, where you and I have talked all year long, like, would love to use Drew Rasmussen with any type of confidence, but if he finishes a 5th inning at 78 pitches, he's not going back out there, but he has.
Yeah.
So is there now a longer leash against an offense who, doesn't strike out a lot? And I assume that's what drives most of the Rasmussen stuff. But like an offense that Kansas City, they have the 4th worst team OPS against righties. I already said how bad their team ISO is, 133. Yeah. That's the 3rd worst, tied for the 3rd worst with the aforementioned Houston Astros. Their WOBA is terrible. They're 4th worst there at 301 as a team WOBA. They're not good against right-handed pitching. And it's not like Jack Kaggs has come and saved the team.
His home runs came off lefties,
Yeah, his home runs come off lefties, and they both came in one game. So, yeah, look at Rasmussen as a pitcher. Sure, he's pitching in a massive ballpark, but dude, he's not. And like a good we've talked about this for years. Like when it's hot in Cincinnati, or in Kansas City, sorry, it's a really good hitter's environment, and it's gonna be 91 degrees, and there's some wind blowing out. Dog, he pitches his home games in a minor league stadium.
Yeah.
And has been absolute nails this year there. So I like Rasmussen as a contrarian option. I do think there's some legitness to Edward Cabrera. I looked at some of the stuff today for Cabrera. There's a lot of like really good underlying numbers for Edward Cabrera.
A lot of live arms in Miami,
Yeah, a lot of live arms in Miami. And when you look at like San Francisco, the ballpark is obviously as good as it gets to pitch in. Like it's cold. It's like 50 something degrees in San Francisco tonight. First pitch is 58 degrees tonight, which is obviously not the best hitting conditions. But San Francisco, and largely, asterisk on this stuff because Devers only barely factors in here. But against right-handed pitching, 21st in OPS, 19th in WOBA and WRC plus this year. Like it's a back end of the league offense. 19th or worse in all three of those categories. 22% strikeout rate. I look at Cabrera, like the stuff has obviously been on display for years. Been pretty consistent when you look at like his last handful of starts, over a strikeout per inning on the year now. Like it's a guy, we talk about strikeouts being king, right?
Yeah.
He's over a strikeout per inning and no one's playing him. Is coming off a darling of a start against the Phillies, right? Lost a 2-1 game where he allows 1 run, and you pick up a loss in that start. Like I don't see a lot to dislike about Edward Cabrera in this start. So at 6,700, that's been primarily the value play that I have gone to in my.
That was the one you talked the most about on the morning show as well. So
yeah, and I haven't wavered like doing my research today. And then Colton Gordon, it's interesting because Philly has 3 lefties in their lineup. They have 6 righties in their lineup. And obviously their lefties are Stott, Schwarber, and I think Brandon Marsh. Schwarber being the biggest thorn in their side. Lefties are doing nothing against Colton Gordon. Nothing. 190 x WOBA, 261 WOBA is terrible to begin with. 100 ISO, 068 expected ISO. He's a 35.5% strikeout rate against lefties this year. Righties, though, John, 263 ISO, 388 WOBA, strikeout rate drops to 19%.
Sure.
So, like, a really big tale of 2 pitchers. You know, both you and I are invested in some Philly today on the season-long side. I
Sure.
know that for a fact.
Yeah.
So we'd like it to come through, and I think there's, like, merit to it. 2.2 home runs per 9 innings to righties, 43% fly ball rate, 412 xFIP, maybe a little bit of, like, positive regression coming for Colton Gordon against righties.
Yeah.
But a lot of hard hit stuff, 36% hard hit rate. So I like him, but I also fear that he could get torched, because you look at Philly, 8th in OPS and WOBA, 9th in WRC plus, 11th in ISO against left-handed pitching this year. So top 10 in the league in most every category. I kind of go back and forth. Like, I have a couple shares because I'm playing multiple lineups. If I were to whittle down into, like, single entry, or if I'm looking for a core type play where I'm not phoning it in and, like, using a SP2 as a value tier, I would go Cabrera over Gordon. But I think there's some merit to get to some Gordon here.
Our guy Don asking, in large field GVPs, should I go with 2 high-priced pitchers? And ask, can Fried and Yamamoto work in large field tournaments? Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is a bit of a medium-sized slate, so your player pools are different. There aren't a ton of, like, great value hitters on their slate, but there certainly are some value hitters to kind of use and build your lineup around. But know that if you're spending up for 2 pitchers like that, you are limiting your offensive exposure in those. You know, you can't really play much of course, you know, or the Dodgers side. If you're spending up there, maybe you get one player in that game. So you kind of have to alter the hitters you want. But yeah, man, if Fried and Yamamoto go out there and give you 60 plus total points together, you're probably okay.
We didn't really talk Yamamoto.
Nope.
What are your thoughts?
Quick mention. I'm fine going there. I mean, excuse me. I know the Rockies lineups have obviously have been a little bit better, right? And they're home. Guys like Hunter Goodman and McMahon and Moniak will be back in their lineup today, and some of their better hitters are kind of running. But I'd still trust the talent of Yamamoto more often than not. I'm not going to start, like, fading matchups against Colorado until they really start to go on a run here.
Can I push back a little and tell you that they've already started they're going from, like, jog to, like, they're working out like a pretty good sweat?
Yeah, I would say caliber of pitcher matters.
Caliber of pitcher definitely matters. How much does ballpark subtract from caliber of pitcher?
I mean, we've seen like ace pitchers go into cores and look like aces. So
absolutely.
I would be more willing to bet more times than not that Yamamoto goes into Colorado and shuts down the Rockies.
I agree. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just, last month against right-handed pitching, Colorado has a 203 ISO. 203 as a team. It's a massive number. So I'm not disagreeing that I think more often than not Yamamoto shuts him down. He's also struggled his last 2 starts. The Rockies are also ascending offensively. So that's my only pause. I'm not saying fade him. I'm not saying to play all the Rockies in the world, but I think there's obviously there has been light at the end of the tunnel that wasn't there earlier in the year for the Rockies offense.
Sure.
And also, I picked in our bold predictions at Fantasy, I picked Yoshinobu Yamamoto to win Cy Young, and I still think, I don't think that's possible anymore, because given like what the hell's going on, and
Mizorowski's probably going to win it now at this point, so
it's possible. But yeah, I mean, I like Yamamoto, but there's obviously the Coors Field factor brewing here.
Only as a starting pitcher, Warren.
I think he got to 8K as a.
No, I mean, you said, do we think he gets it this year? I mean, he only has one more game in Coors, so he's not going to hit 8K outside of Coors.
They don't get Coors again this year.
I guess maybe they do. They might. You might be right. Maybe
like if he goes on a run, and he's going into Coors like 10 home runs his last 15.
Yeah, maybe. Look, maybe their next time in Coors, possibly, I guess, but he only gets that high in Coors unless they give it to him. And Tampa, did they go to Tampa yet? Do they go to Tampa?
That's a good. Yeah, every team plays every team
travels now. Yeah. So I guess we'll see, Warren. Maybe you're right. Jordan wants to know Ohtani, Acuna or Judge tonight.
We'll get to that in the outfield.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right. Any other pitchers you want to talk about?
No, I mean, you mentioned the Joe Ryan ownership. He's a good pitcher. If you want to get there, you can get there. I don't think
Joe Ryan's third highest pitcher. So
yeah, I don't think he is better than like some of the guys in his peers and in the range he's pitching in. But
Rasmussen ownership actually dropped even more. It's now down to 5%. So
I mean, you don't need to give us a reason to play him.
Nope. All right, catcher. Obviously, there's Kyle Raleigh as your guy up at $6,500. Salvi Perez is your highest roster. JT Realmuto and Austin Wells are tied for second here.
Interesting that Smith was like so definitively ahead of everyone else yesterday. And now he's not. Yeah, I like Raleigh. The Yankees again, John, this is like a daily thing, have 6 implied runs because it's 100 degrees in Great American. And everyone thinks they're going to blow up again.
Yeah.
And everyone in the lineup is slumping at the same time. So if you want to play Austin Wells, that's a premium for a catcher. And I understand he has largely been productive. He has largely been awful lately. And by that, I mean, he has just flat out been bad. But this is obviously a spot to break out in. We know Brady Singer struggles against lefties, although he's been, peripherally a little better this year. 182 ISO is not great. Neither is the 229 expected ISO for lefties. So if you want to play an Austin Wells home run, you can. Okay. We were completely wrong. Drake Baldwin is in the lineup today, John. Yeah. Rejoice.
Yes. Unfortunately, nobody on the A's or Athletics yesterday. Braves. Jesus, I am hurt seeing the A on the hat and could not say the team. Kept really was throwing me off there. Couldn't get much done against Frankie Montas there. Needed the bullpen to come in to allow some production.
Yeah, of course, because Frankie Montas was so good at AAA. So and on his whole rehab. So naturally, that's how things go. The Realmuto one is the ownership is interesting, and I think while I think he's been better, and obviously he's been one of our better hitting catchers in baseball over the course of a decade, he has not been that this year, and he's also terrible against lefties. So that's really like a price in a lineup spot play more than it is anything else, because he's been awful against lefties this year. Not my favorite play, but if you're stacking Philly, I understand it. But yeah, it's a little.
Anything else here?
Yeah, I mean, Salvi is fine. Pozo is in the lineup. Matt Boyd's allowed 10 home runs this year, all 10 to righties. You could punt Sanger at Stone Cold Min 2K. If he literally just gets on base, that's a win if you punt Hayden Sanger. So I think Pozo and Sanger were probably the two guys like that I would just simply punt with. Catcher's a really bad position today. So I am perfectly fine if you look at it as a position where I will just gladly take a 2K punt and play them no matter who it is. So if you want to play Pozo, if you want to play Vasquez, if you want to play Sanger, play any of them because those are just ways to get more doubters.
Sure. Anything else?
No.
Okay. First base. Shohei Ohtani, $7,400. I think we played him at first in our example lineup that we built as part of the cores this morning. You have him and Ohtani, Olsen, Ben Rice at $4,400 hitting third today. Obviously homered off Chase Burns yesterday. Ownership at first base today has Ben Rice as your top rostered guy today as well. So is that where you're being led to also?
I mean, he's good. He's really good. The Yankees look good, especially the lefties and plus Judge. So yes, 4,400 for Ben Rice hitting third, just absolutely on fire. Everything he hits is hard, 100 miles an hour plus. And the Dodgers, they look good. Those would be the three guys for me. I wouldn't shy away from Matt Olson. Clay Holmes is starting to look a little shaky, kind of anticipated. And lefties, 170 expected ISO to lefties for Clay Holmes. So I do like Olsen, but I do like Michael Busch. He's been pretty good lately. We've talked about Eric Fetty's expected collapse and how the Cubs are top 5 in every offensive category against righties. Lefties have a 185 expected ISO against Eric Fed, 366 expected WOBA, 39% fly ball rate, 33% hard hit rate. So I think Busch, if you can get to a Cub stack, is like, because like if you're playing a Cub stack, it's just an absolute alt stack to cores because they're all expensive. But I do think the Cubs are in a really good spot today as well.
Sure. Other ownership, high ownership plays today. Again, it's largely consolidated to Rice, and then Ohtani, Perez have the dual positional eligibility. Yandy's around 9% today. No one's really looking to spend up else at this position. Is there another favorite? We talked obviously to Ben Rice, Aranda is right there with no ownership, who's been also as good. Also, both on my fantasy baseball team. Would you take the contrarian play with Aranda?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Just an update here, by the way. Dalton Rushing is starting at catcher tonight.
Okay.
So
no Smith or
no Smith. $3,400 for Rushing, batting ninth.
Okay.
Which is good.
Yeah, coming off of a decent game last time out.
Yeah, Muncy hitting 4th, Teoscar hitting 5th, Pajes 6th, Edmund 7, Conforto 8, Rushing 9. I didn't say 1 through 3 because we already know what it is.
Sure.
But yeah, just thought I'd give that. And yeah, I'd pivot off of Rice to Aranda. I think Ben Rice is in a better spot, but also Jonathan Aranda's awesome. So
it's still hitting 330.
Yeah,
still has a 900 OPS. Had 3 hits yesterday, even with Bubic on the mound. Rice is coming in at almost 25%, and Aranda is sitting at 4%. So, if one does better than the other, there you have the ownership advantage. Anything else here at first for you?
You could play Tolia if you want to play someone sub 4K. Otto Kemp, I think, looks pretty good, righty lefty. But that's it. We don't need to really go any further.
Second base. Is Kim in the lineup today?
No, he's not.
Okay. Well, Edmund
hitting 7th.
$4,700. Is there? I'm going to allow $4,400 for him. Thoughts at second here?
Yeah, like Lau. That's probably I would play Edman, but I honestly I'd rather just probably spend less for Brandon Lau because I feel more confident that Brandon Lau hits a home run than Tommy Edman, but maybe I'll eat my words there. I would not shy away from Brendan Donovan. He's been good against lefties. George Kirby has a big lefty problem. So if you want to play Willie Castro, now there's some suggestion that George Kirby's been a little unlucky. Has allowed 3.3 home runs per 9 innings to lefties. So Willie Castro is 3,700 hitting third. Cody Clemens is 2,800 hitting seventh. That's two lefties for Minnesota that I'd play here, just given the Kirby problems with power against them. And then Edmundo Sosa, 3,200. If you're new here, welcome. Also, we play Edmundo Sosa exclusively when there's a lefty, and it works 60% of the time. It works every time.
Dude still has the batting average there against lefties, so definitely it on some Edmundo. Anything else at second for you?
Yeah, it's hat tip to Jeff McNeil hitting second or hitting fifth as well.
Okay. Rusty says he needs a mid first baseman.
Rice.
Mid?
Rice or Aranda.
Yeah, Rice or Aranda, right? That's probably where you
Yep.
All right. Third base then. From an ownership perspective at third base, everybody's looking to play Max Muncy. And then Jazz Chisholm, those two guys are the only two over 10%. Jazz and Muncy, 18 and 17% there. You've obviously highlighted Muncy a ton. No reason not to go back here. Dollander at home has been dreadful.
Yeah, and he's been dreadful against lefties too. And not that he's been good against righties, but because he's been 2.2 home runs to both splits. So,
yeah,
equal pitcher, right? Doesn't care who he faces. He'll allow home runs to both splits. 5.11 xFIP, 44% fly ball rate, 40% hard hit rate to lefties. I mean, if I were to bet a home run today, if my life depended on it, which it doesn't, and I'm not, I would bet Max Muncy if those scenarios were playing out, right? I do like Jazz. Obviously, he's been like one of the only good Yankees lately. Him, Rice, Grisham's been pretty good. That's about it. But Jazz has been really good. I think there's a good chance we get a Junior Caminero home run tonight.
Okay.
Michael Wacha has some pretty bad peripheral numbers to righties, and that kind of plays to Yandy too, which I didn't really elaborate on. But dude, Junior Caminero, a guy that we've talked about a lot, like when there's 290 ISO to righties this year, 383 WOBA. Not that it's surprising because he's a monster. But 290 ISO is like, got to pay attention. That's like stuff. 15 of his home runs have come against righties this year. So again, really, really hot in that area, with some winds blowing out to left field as well.
Sure.
Get some Junior Caminero in my life tonight.
Ronnie Mauricio is someone that's getting some ownership as well. Just value and people looking at Mets against Fuentes. You can play Sosa here as well. Riley's a cheap ownership play. 5% has some home run upside there. No one's playing Devers. If you wanted 3% for that guy, you like Casey Schmidt on the show again. He's only 2%. Is there another third baseman you'd look to go to tonight?
Alec Bohm, 3,900. Good, very good history against left-handed pitching. You could play McMahon and hope he hits a home run because he's has
1%. 1% McMahon. So
yeah, ridiculous splits, home and away. So if you want to play McMahon, Bohm, Arenado, hitting fifth, the Cardinals look pretty good. I think I would go back to the Cardinals well. So yeah, I think all three of those plays are good in the mid-tier.
Right. Shortstop, Mookie Betts is your highest projected rostered. Same thing as yesterday. We go Mookie and Volpe. I don't get the Volpe thing, but he's there. I would much rather go to Lindor, who we tried to build on the lineup with last night at 54. Where's your take at short today?
My take is I like that you said tried. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I like Lindor. I like Trey Turner quite a bit if you're spending up. Obviously, he's not going to get as much love at 6K, but I like Trey Turner. Mookie's like whatever, right? I mean, he was good yesterday, but 10 fantasy points at 5,700 is not good enough. Dansby fits in a Cub stack. I think Mason Wynn looks great at 3,600. He's a pretty good baseball player that is, still like a little inconsistent, but he's hitting second against a guy who has given up all of his damage to righties. So I don't mind the Mason Wynn play when you get below the 4K range.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Outfield we go then. Obviously, a wildly loaded position. A little quick refresh here on the ownership. Your highest rostered outfielders today are on the Yankees. Giancarlo Stanton is now almost 30%. Trent Grisham, 27%. Ohtani with the dual positional eligibility is 15, and then Judge is 15 as well. So your Yankees are where the people are going. Thoughts there?
I mean, I think the lefties look great, and you can always play Judge.
Okay.
Stan's price is good. That's my large take on the Yankees. And that brings us back to the Jordan question: Ohtani, Acuna, or Judge. I mean, it's hard to like.
I think you go Judge here, honestly. Just the save $700 off Ohtani against Singer.
I think I probably lean Shohei, but I think that I would probably put them on a different tier than Acuna. And I shouldn't say that. I'd probably just put them slightly ahead of Acuna. And the same thing goes, I love Tucker and PCA because I think Eric Fetty is a bad pitcher. So I don't think there's a wrong answer above 5K, truthfully.
Sure.
So, I'd lean Shohei, but I also understand why people go to Judge.
All right. I guess the next tier down, obviously there's all these Dodgers, Pajes, as we kind of highlighted. There's Soto at 55. Then you have your 4K range. Is there like a core group for you in this spot?
Just getting to Anthony's point, Buddy Kennedy not in the lineup tonight, Anthony. Just heads up. Core guy in the 4K range. Would play Teoscar, by the way, obviously.
Sure.
Would play Soto, obviously. Would play Seiya, Pajes. I think they all look great. Core guys in the 4K range. I mean, Ian Happ looks amazing at 43. Marcell Ozuna looks good at 42 in a stack. Brendan Nimmo looks great. Grisham looks amazing leading off. Don't hate Josh Lowe now that he's down to 4,200.
Yeah.
They've lowered his price.
Would you play Moniak?
I would, and yeah, he's been pretty good. I don't love that they're hitting him 7th. I mean, they were hitting him as high as 2nd last week, so I don't love the 7th spot, but he has obviously undeniably been great. So you could play Moniak, and then you dip below, like Conforto sitting right there, Castellanos is sitting right there. Those are probably the first two guys I would get to sub 4K.
Yeah, Conforto, Castellanos, Stanton, Chandler Simpson with the speed. All good spots there.
Yep. The Twins lefties here, Larnack and Wallner, look great just with how bad Kirby's been against lefties.
Yeah. Luke Raley, if you wanted to go against Joe Ryan, I guess. Jackson hitting 635.
Yeah, Dominguez is an interesting pivot because all the other Yankees are getting the ownership. We're more than him. He's getting some, but like he's the 4th highest owned Yankee outfielder of the day.
Sure. Anything else for value here?
Yeah. I don't. We talked Jeff McNeil. I don't hate McNeil. Caglione, not giving up on Caglione. Even though Drew Rasmussen's a good pitcher, I would play Caglione.
Okay.
But that's it. Just those two.
All right. Any other questions here? Do you like Yamamoto and Wheeler? Yeah. Anthony, we talked about that. We like them both. You can go up there. Get it. Of course. I think we kind of settled in on a low roster Rasmussen. And then I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it depends because I would. I'd counter and say Cabrera is also loaned, so and he's cheaper. He lets you do more.
Rasmussen is lesser rostered than Cabrera.
Yeah, but that's splitting hairs because they're both single digit ownership.
You can play them both. Really get wild with it.
You could. I don't know if I would, but you could.
I mean, if you do this, you have both pitchers in the same game. Do you go up and just play Wheeler instead?
Yeah, or Fried. Yeah, that's probably what I would do.
Do you have a preference?
Wheeler.
Okay. Might as well just play Dalton Rushing, I guess, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. You said you would play Ohtani. Would you play him at first or outfield?
Outfield. Grisham at 41 looks good.
Should you do Grisham Stanton and just stack it?
Edmundo, get our boy in there.
Second or third?
Second, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing this is the rushing problem that I have. And it's not like a big problem.
You think he gets pitch hit for?
No, I think this spot more than anything is one that we could throw away, right? So like using a Pozo or Sanger has mainly been like my approach today, because they're literally just like if that dude gets us a single tonight, it's a big fat W at 3K. Because you can get to a Zach Wheeler and a Shohei Ohtani in the same lineup, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, 4K a play. We can make it.
Yeah, 4K. Yeah, we can.
We're making it work. We're making it work here. I mean, we did Lindor. That's 36.
Yeah,
3,600 for first, third, and outfield.
Yeah, we might need to, in this lineup, move Edmundo to third unless we're playing Mauricio, basically, which I'd be okay with, which we're not. We could just stop it right there.
If you played Edmundo at third, what's your punt second base then?
It would probably be Cody Clemens would probably be my answer.
Okay. Because
the 3.3 home runs that Kirby's allowed to lefties.
All right. We'll do this then. Cabrera, Wheeler, Sanger, Sosa, Lindor, Ohtani, Grisham. $3,600 for a first, second, and outfielder, and there is value to be had at these positions that help you guys get back up maybe into the 4K range for one of those spots. We'll have the completed lineup in the Discord, so make sure you check that out. We'll have the preview show for Thursday. No live show for Thursday, though. We'll be back live for Friday. Good luck, everybody. We'll catch you later.